The film begins with the battle between the rebels, including Batosai and the Shinsengumi troops in the Kyoto area in 1868. The fight was fierce and resulted in many casualties from both sides, but in the end, the rebel forces won the battle and were able to fly the imperial flag as a symbol of the beginning of the peace era. The Shinsengumi troops commander named Hajime Saito wanted to duel with one of the rebel member named Himura Kenshin. He also known as Batusai, a samurai who can kill enemies very quickly by using only a few attacks without getting injured. They have long encountered each other in battles, but not once have they ever fought. Saito challenged Kenshin, but he refused to keep his promise to his wife, not to kill anyone again after the era of peace begins. Soon after, he plunged the sword that had claimed the lives of hundreds of people into the ground as a sign that he no longer wanted to become a Batosai. Moments later, one of the samurai named Udo rose from behind. He walked unsteadily and accidentally touched Kenshin's sword. 10 years later, Japan's situation reached a revolution and began to develop. It was ruled by an emperor named Admiral Arimoto Yamagata, but there was a drug lord named Takeda Kanryu. He made his fortune by selling opium-type illicit drugs to the people. He no longer had any rivals in the business after having all the people who knew how to make opium killed, except for a beautiful woman named Megumi. The following day, Saito and the Shinsengumi police officers found the body of the man who concocted the drug and started an investigation into the murder case. When the officers suspected that the man was killed by a Batusai, Saito felt certain that his killer was a fake Batusai because he had seen how the real Batusai carried out the massacre. Meanwhile, the real Kenshin alias Batusai is surprised when he finds a police poster. Kenshin suspects that a samurai is pretending to be a Batusai and using Batusai's reputation to harm others. Suddenly, a girl named Kaoru pointed a wooden sword at him. She feels deep hatred toward the person on the poster because they killed her father and destroyed their dojo. She attacked him because she thought Kenshin was a Batusai, being chased by the police. Kenshin says he is just a wanderer, and the sword he carries is a sword with an inverted sharp edge, so that the sword cannot be used to kill other people. After hearing his explanation, the girl apologized. Saito comes to Takeda's headquarters to interrogate Takeda. He suspects that Takeda is the one who has sent a fake Batosai to kill a man in a case being investigated by the current Shinsengumi police. However, due to the lack of sufficient evidence to prove Takeda's guilt, Saito and the police could not arrest him. That night, Takeda gets news from his men that his opium concoctor, Megumi, has escaped from their base. Takeda ordered his men, named Udo, to find Megumi's whereabouts. It turns out that Udo is a fake Batosai who found the sword of Kenshin. Meanwhile, Megumi decides to hide in the Shinsengumi police station to seek cover. Unfortunately, not long after, Udo managed to track down Megumi in that place and began brutally massacring all members of the Shinsengumi police. Megumi managed to escape from the place by breaking the window of the police station at the time of the riot. When Udo was about to walk home to Takeda's headquarters, he killed a police officer and threw him from a bridge. Kaoru, who happened to be there, realized that Udo, a Batusai who had been hunted by the police. Kaoru has a personal grudge against a Batosai because several years ago, the real Batosai killed her father very cruelly. However, Udo can easily knock her down with one strike until Kaoru falls to the ground. Kenshin, who heard the commotion, ran over to them and saved Kaoru from Udo's attack. Seeing his movement speed and attack accuracy, Udo knew that the person in front of him was the legendary Batusai figure he had been looking for. When Udo was about to attack Kenshin, the Shinsengumi police force had already arrived, so Kenshin used the opportunity to run away with Kaoru. After that, Kaoru took Kenshin to her family's hermitage and thanked him for his help. She then told him that formerly the hermitage was a school run by her father, but after Batosai killed her father, Kaoru turned the place into a small hermitage and has only a male student named Yahiko. The next day, a group of thugs came to Kaoru's mansion and forced her to sell the mansion to them. Kaoru clearly refused to sell it because her father inherited the place, so she asked the thugs to leave. But instead of listening, the thugs destroyed things in that place and created chaos. Kenshin with no weapons. He can easily defeat all the thugs, one by one. After most of the thugs had fallen, he turned to Kaoru and said that he would demonstrate the fighting style of a batusai. Everyone in that place was shocked by Kenshin's statement that he was the most feared legendary batusai in the past. Kaoru was no exception, who at that time could only be pensive when she learned that Kenshin was the batusai she had been looking for all this time to take revenge for her father's death. Not long after, several police officers from Shinsengumi came to the place and arrested everyone who created chaos, including Kenshin. Arriving at the police station, Kenshin was detained for a while before being brought by Saito before Admiral Yamagata. After receiving information from Saito, Admiral Yamagata finally learns that Kenshin is a rebellious samurai who has slaughtered many people to reach a new era and bring peace to Japan. Soon after, Admiral Yamagata intends to ask Kenshin to help kill everyone involved in the manufacture of opium drugs. He explained that opium trafficking could destroy their people and their country, so he wanted to eradicate the entire drug dealer to the root. Sadly, Kenshin refuses to carry out the task because he vows not to kill anyone again after the era of peace has been achieved. Hearing that, Saito took Kenshin's sword and asked how he protected others with a reverse blade sword. Kenshin replied that he could protect the people around him without killing his enemies. Shortly after, Saito challenges Kenshin to a one-on-one duel to prove his words. After the short fight, Admiral Yamagata stopped them both and asked Saito to release Kenshin. He had accepted Kenshin's decision that he didn't want to kill anyone else. On the other hand, Megumi, who had been on the run for several days to escape Takeda's men, finally managed to escape and accidentally met Yahiko. While crying, she asked him to save her and hid her at his place. At the same time, Kenshin, who had just been released from detention by the Shinsengumi police, found that Kaoru was waiting for him in front of the police headquarters. Even though Kaoru already knows that Kenshin is Batosai, who once killed her father, she realizes that Kenshin already regrets his actions and has also shown his intention to change to be a better person. Arriving at the dojo, Kaoru told Yahiko that Kenshin would be living with them from that day. Then, Megumi, who had been helped by Yahiko, introduced herself to Kenshin and Kaoru. At night, Kaoru invites Megumi and Kenshin to have dinner at a tavern while talking. Even though Kenshin is not good at expressing his feelings, he feels happy to feel the warmth and togetherness he hasn't had in a long time. Not long after, Takeda came with his men to meet Kenshin after they learned he was a former Batusai. Then he asked Kenshin to work as his bodyguard while giving some money. However, Kenshin refused the offer because he did not want to be involved with a mafia member like him. Shortly after Kenshin turns down Takeda's offer, a young man named Sagara Sanosuke comes carrying a large sword to offer himself as Takeda's bodyguard. He even challenged Kenshin to a one-on-one duel to prove his ability to Takeda. Hearing that, Kenshin and Sanosuke walked out of the diner so they wouldn't cause chaos. On the city bridge, Sanosuke started to issue his first attack by swinging his long sword at him. Surprisingly, Kenshin did not attempt to counterattack and simply dodged the attack. After a while, Kenshin stepped on Sanosuke's sword and asked Sanosuke if a formidable fighter like him really wanted to work for someone like Takeda. The question left Sanosuke silent and astray before he finally stopped his fight with Kenshin and decided not to work for Takeda. In the evening, Udo, obsessed with being a Batusai, again massacred the thugs who had attacked Kaoru's dojo the other day. The next day, Saito and the police officers who had found the thugs' bodies began investigating the case. At that time, Kenshin, who happened to be in that place, saw a young woman crying over her family's death in the massacre. The incident made him remember his past, when his wife, Tomo, had experienced something similar to that woman. A dozen years ago, Kenshin had killed a group of samurai who were members of the shogun's party supporters. And one of the samurai he killed at that time was his wife's future fiancé. The samurai was the first person to scratch Kenshin's face. One day, residents around Kaoru's dojo came to her place and asked for help to heal their sick family members. It is still unknown what caused it, but some of the residents in the district began to fall ill at the same time. Megumi, a medical expert, gave directions to Kenshin and Sanosuke to carry out detoxification treatment for every patient there. The residents were finally healed and gradually recovered from the disease. Kenshin was curious. He tried to ask Megumi about what really happened to the townspeople. She said that Takeda and his men had poisoned the water sources of residents that have been contaminated with dangerous drugs. Megumi then says she is an opium maker and Takeda's mistress, while Takeda runs his illegal business. Many people had developed an opium addiction so badly that they all died horribly because they couldn't get help. After hearing Megumi's story, Kenshin recalled the task given to him by Admiral Yamagata and kept thinking about the suffering of the Japanese people caused by Takeda's greed. After considering many things, Kenshin decided to go to Takeda's headquarters and help the police to catch Takeda. Sanosuke found out that Kenshin was going to attack Takeda, so he offered to help Kenshin. Just before they left, Kaoru suddenly ran to call Kenshin and told him that Megumi had left the dojo. In the letter left by Megumi, she intends to come to Takeda's headquarters alone and kill him directly. On the other hand, Megumi arrived at Takeda's headquarters and was welcomed by Takeda because he thought she wanted to work for him again. But when he approached her, Megumi grabbed a knife and attacked him. Unfortunately, Takeda's men managed to stop her, and she has to get some hard slaps from Takeda. Kenshin and Sanosuke have arrived at their base and intend to save Megumi. Takeda mobilized his entire crew to fight against them, so a fierce battle finally occurred. Kenshin and Sanosuke fought very epically, where they could take down several opponents at once with just a few attacks. Upon arrival at Takeda's headquarters, Kenshin and Sanosuke faced two tough fighters, Inoue Banujin and Gain. Their battle was fierce and tense until they finally defeated their two enemies. Unfortunately, when they arrived in front of Takeda's office, they were greeted with continuous bullets from the machine gun that had been prepared by Takeda. Luckily, Yahiko managed to contact the Shinsengumi police so that Saito and Kenshin could help confront Takeda. With the attack tactics and strategies directed by Saito, they finally managed to capture Takeda and his men at that place. While Saito was securing Takeda, Kenshin and Sanosuke rushed to the room where Megumi was being held to free her. When her mouth was untied, Megumi told Kenshin that Udo had gone to Kaoru's place and kidnapped Kaoru. It turns out that Udo's goal in taking Kaoru hostage is to provoke Kenshin's anger so that he can force Kenshin to become a Batosai like before. Kenshin rushed to the location where Kaoru was being held according to the instructions left by Udo. When Kenshin arrived, Udo attacked him using the sword that had been used by him to kill many people. During the fight, Udo tries to provoke Kenshin so that he returns to being a true Batosai as before. Udo even uses a forbidden move to paralyze Kaoru's lungs, forcing Kenshin to fight seriously. Kenshin had no choice but to start fighting against Udo with all his might. After a fierce fight, Udo began to be cornered and seriously injured. But when Kenshin turned his side of the sword and prepared to cut Udo's body, Kaoru shouted and asked him not to kill Udo. She was afraid that Kenshin would turn into Batosai like before, so she begged him not to execute Udo. Hearing that, Kenshin finally decided to cancel his intention to kill Udo and only paralyzed Udo's right arm. But unexpectedly, Udo prefers to end his own life with his sword. Afterward, Kenshin carried Kaoru, who had fallen unconscious, and left the place. Several days later, Kaoru finally regained consciousness. From then on, they would live a more peaceful life at the dojo with Megumi, Sanosuke, and Yahiko.